Hello, bonjour, namaste, ni hao, and ohio, everybody. What is going on? It is Gale here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Danmachi Season 5 video. And today, we are here to talk about episode 14. We're going to be reviewing the episode, talking about it, analyzing it, and giving you guys my thoughts on the episode. Did it meet my expectations and all that sort of jazz? And of course, I want to talk a little bit about just expectations in general, obviously from you guys, the light novel readers who are watching the anime onlys who are watching the anime, and everything in between, of course, as well. And along with that, I want to talk about where will we go from here into episode 15, of course, the final episode next week. Now, of course, this episode has been away, or was in the making, for about 3.5-4 weeks based on what we know. Of course, they had just started the production on episode 14 based on the information we got from the screening all those weeks ago for episodes 12 and 13. Somebody asked the question there, and they said that the production on episode 14 had only just begun. So effectively, they had been running on about 3 to 4 weeks of production on episode 14. So I kind of wasn't expecting the world of episode 14. I thought it would be more in the vein of episode 13, maybe. Obviously not to the lows of episode 11, but I wasn't expecting the highs that we saw in episode 12. I was expecting episode 13 something that was solid, something that was good, something that was consistent. What we got in this episode, at least to me initially, and I want to talk about this from an initial perspective, I thought for the most part it was solid. I thought it was good, but it was inconsistently good. Now, let me explain this in more detail. When I say consistency and when I talk about inconsistently good, what I mean is that at times it was great, it was amazing, and then at other times you could say that it was either barely passable or decent at best, right? And that's what I mean by inconsistently good. There were moments in this episode that I would say were, like I said, brilliant. You know, the start with Hayden and Hegni, you know, the Alan stuff, and just generally speaking, that direction, of course, with those characters was great. And then, of course, you had the facial expressions of the characters and all of that sort of stuff. Again, top-notch work from JC staff. But then it again comes down to this whole situation where with Otarl, where in some moments it's just super clunky, and in other moments it's actually not bad. It's just like they don't know how to use Otarl, and this is something I've been having some complaints about since season 2, season 3, is that Otarl just doesn't feel right in the hands of JC staff. There's something they can't achieve with Otarl, which is, I don't understand how with all these years you would have thought that they might have practiced it or something, or learned something about how to work with bigger characters. But it just feels like, you know, when you're, you know, like, say for example, I am an engineer, right? Maybe I'm really good with planes, maybe I'm really good with cars, and I'm really good with aerodynamics, but put me in front of an electrical circuit board and I'm probably gonna be a little bit lost. And it feels like it's that way here with the animators, where you can see in other moments they're fantastic. And this is something I even joked about in my reaction, is like when you take a look at Alan's thing later on, right, when he's using his lightning attack and everything, right, JC knows how to do lightning attacks and everything of that sort really well, because if you look at their Railgun series, you see how good they are there. But then when it comes to like big hulking characters, or just bigger characters in general, with like Otarl, and to an extent even Mia as well, to be quite honest, I think Mamma Mia is very similar to this as well, when it comes to how they show off Otarl in this episode. It just feels like there's a little bit of a struggle there, where they just can't get it to work. And it feels like, okay, they're great at a lot of other things, and then they're just bad at these couple of things. And it shows in this episode, where it's just inconsistently like good in a way, if you know what I mean. And I feel like a lot of people, from what I've seen, have been ragging on the animation and calling it absolutely horrible, which I personally disagree with. If you want to talk about horrible animation, I can name you like 15 to 20 other shows that exists. And that's just the bare minimum. I can probably chuck out 100 more shows that look worse than Danmachi season 5. I still maintain, I think Danmachi season 5 overall is probably the second best season in my opinion, when it comes to the animation side of things. I know some people might put season 1 over it, but I feel like season 1 also, I think a lot of people are being blinded by that extreme high we got with the Bell versus Minotaur fight, in my personal opinion. Having rewatched season 1 very recently, I think a lot of people are putting that Bell versus Minotaur fight too high up, and forgetting that it also had really low lows as well at times, to be honest. But nonetheless, that's besides the point. That's a discussion for another day, ranking all the anime and stuff like that. That's a discussion and topic for another day. I feel like season 5, and especially this episode, was just another indication of this whole inconsistency thing that's going on with JC Staff. Now, there is a part of me that believes this could be down to, of course, the outsourcing side of things, of course, right? You know, JC Staff don't just do everything in-house. They have a lot of studios that they outsource, and this has been a thing since season 2, actually. Season 1 was completely in-house by JC Staff. Season 2 onwards, there was a lot of outsourcing. In fact, I think season 3 was completely outsourced outside of 2 episodes. Literally, everything else was outsourced, which makes sense because back then, season 3 came out during COVID, so it was a big struggle to get everything sorted out, so they had to outsource a lot of the work, and as a result, there was, you could notice it in season 3 that it was very inconsistent in that season as well. Unfortunately, even though it was way better than season 2, it was still very inconsistent. But even season 4 has had outsourcing, by the way. I'd just like to mention that really quickly so that people aren't saying that, oh, it's only because they're outsourcing that season 5 is bad. No, it's because season 4 also had outsourcing. A lot of studios do outsourcing. It's not the problem here. The problem might be more so on who they're outsourcing to, if you know what I mean, because that comes down to that it basically also changes the group of people working on the show and all of that jazz. Maybe there are new people working on the show that have not had experience with these characters. That could be a big reason. Maybe they're outsourcing from the same studio, and these studios just don't know how to work with, you know, characters like Otaral and stuff, which shows their weaknesses, and it's something that might be the case. But anyways, I don't think this episode was as bad as I've seen some people pointing it out to be, in my personal opinion. Like I said, I think it's inconsistently good, but I think that inconsistency is also what can be a very jarring experience for a lot of individuals. Because at the end of the day, in my personal opinion, I would rather an episode be consistently good and consistently great, or either or, of course, in that it's just very effectively static, in not in a bad way, but static in the sense of it's statically similar throughout the episode. The problem is we go from high low to kind of in the middle to a high to low, and it just goes all over the place, and it feels very jarring, especially when you can also notice some of the styles changing and stuff like that throughout the episode. That can be a little bit of a problem. That can be a little bit of a problem, in my opinion. So that is the animation side of things from my perspective. I do think a lot of people are ragging on it a little bit too much. I do think some of the points people are making about it, like just being downright horrible, is a little bit of a stretch, personally, in my personal opinion. Do I think it's perfect? By absolutely no means. Am I saying this is like episode 12 or anything of that sort? Do I think it's good? Sort of. In most situations, it's good to very good even. There are lows, however. There are lows. Do I think it's bad? No, absolutely not. I do not believe that this is bad at all. Now, the question more so I think a lot of people will probably point towards and talk about is, I think probably why I'm seeing a lot of people ragging on the animation is that we've been away for 3 weeks. Not to mention we had that whole 1 month delay or 2 months delay. What were they doing in that period? I do think that they had actually a lot of the episodes ready, actually I should say, or episode 12 and 13 ready, of course, back when they took the delay and everything. But I do think what ended up happening is that they probably had to scrap a lot, if not everything, from the prepared episodes, because they realized that they needed to start afresh. Episode 12 and 13 probably must have taken them a long time to get going. In fact, we found out that they only finished episode 13 a couple of days before the screening. So it shows that they were pretty much like really tight with the schedule, even with the delay. And it just goes to show, again, this whole thing of like where they just needed more time. I said it before and I'll say it again. I do think that the episodes should have been delayed to the end of March, in my personal opinion. I think if you given them till the end of March, it would have been probably a lot better. Now, of course, people will say that, oh, maybe JC staff still didn't have enough time. Maybe they would have had other people on other projects and so on and so forth. And absolutely, that might be true. Of course, with the recent announcement that Railgun Season 4 is happening and everything, it's very possible. But I still maintain I think they needed more time to get these episodes going. In terms of the actual episode itself, and let's talk about the story content first and foremost. I know a lot of people will say like, oh, Gail, why are you not pointing out more about that point? But that's just my opinion. I do think they just needed more time on the episode, and they didn't get it clearly. And episode 14 is an example of that, where clearly they've still not had enough time. And I know people will say, well, they had 3 weeks, but it's not easy. It's not a cakewalk just doing an animation work, it's 24 minutes of making sure everything works extremely well, is done right, make alterations, changes, things get removed, added, so on and so forth. It's not an easy process to animate an episode, and not to mention with all the deadlines they have to work with other projects that they might have as well, and so on and so forth. It's not easy. But this is why I say that they should have probably just overall given them way more time. But again, corporations, background stuff, and everything can come into play there. But let's talk about the episode itself. Now let's talk about the story. And like I said, I want to see what you guys have to say in the comments about everything that I've said in this video. So feel free to have at me in regards to everything. But let's talk about the episode itself. Now, generally speaking, I did like the pacing for the most part. There were some things that I felt were cut unnecessarily. And again, if we just didn't have shit like the opening and the ending, again, we would have been in a better position. As always, nothing new. This is always what we say. I say it every fucking 50 minutes. You know how it is. I say it every 50 minutes. But generally speaking, for the most part, I think the pacing was solid. However, I do think that this is becoming a noticeable problem now, where we are just lacking a lot of context because of missing things. For example, when we take a look at stuff with, the history of certain characters, like the Gulliver brothers, which was way back here, I think I want to say. Somewhere down here, I want to say it's somewhere down here. I can't remember where it is. Well, we had, of course, the Freya thing with Alan. We had the Gulliver brothers, which were somewhere here, basically. Yeah, there it is. These memories are... there is no information attached to them. While as a light novel reader, I am like losing my mind over seeing these scenes in the anime. To the average person that was probably watching my reaction live or after the live stream, probably must be like, why is this guy getting so excited? And it's the same thing with this scene actually that we were just on like a second ago, where we saw where is it, man? I lost my train of thought. There it is. Where Alan talks about like how he's still not able to use this ability as good as Leon. Everybody would think Leon as in Ryu Leon, like Ryu. No, it's not about Ryu. It's actually about somebody else entirely. And so it's like, well, these contexts, I guess the Leon one would be a little bit more obscure for most fans because the character still not appeared in anything outside of the light novel, so it would still be a little bit more obscure, right? But things like the Gulliver brothers scene and everything, where it's flashback sequences, these were things that were discussed in Familiar Chronicles and explained in the light novel. They're not explained in the anime. It's just memories without any voice attached to it. And so as a result, I do think that's where anime onlys will struggle a little bit, and I can understand that. It's what I was thinking during the episode. While I was super excited, of course, as a light novel reader, as an anime fan, I could 100% agree with people in saying that that can be quite confusing. That can be very confusing. It's something I'll break down a lot more detail in, of course, the cut contents video, talking about those scenes in particular, breaking them down and expanding on those scenes, giving guys more context, of course, as to what is exactly happening in those scenes, right? So that you understand Freya's perspective as well as the, Freya Familiar's perspective, of course, right, as well, because some of you guys might be like, oh, the Freya Familiar sucks, they're evil, they're bad, and so on and so forth. But you have to understand their perspective as well as to why they're so they're worshipping Freya so much. We have like also Hayden and Hegni, they give some context about like in terms of like, oh, what did they, why, in terms of why they were taking on with each other, like in terms of like, oh, Hegni is like, oh, she stopped us from fighting each other for eternity and so on and so forth. But like, we need more details than that. So I think that is where anime fans will struggle a little bit. But generally speaking, like I said, outside of that, I think they did a fantastic job overall with the pacing, outside of one big scene that was cut, which again I'll talk about in cut contents a little bit more in detail, and of course the just context attached to the memory sequences, which I think would have enhanced, just generally speaking, the story aspect. Again, you remove the opening, you remove the ending, and I think you would have had more time to just expand on those scenes, give a little bit more context. It would have worked way better, in my opinion. It would have 100% worked way better. I'm curious to see how you guys feel about those scenes, because that is something, as anime onlys, do you guys think those scenes were fine as they were, or do you guys would have preferred, some more context? Because one of the biggest issues I think a lot of fans have had as the light novel readers has been just some missing context regarding the past of certain characters, in my personal opinion at least. Alan and Anya's backstory in episode 7, up until now Freya's backstory is just completely missing. It feels like not mentioned just generally as well. What we have in these episodes with like many moments just not being explained, feels like they're missing that factor that would help us kind of be a little bit more like, okay, I get the perspective a little bit better from Freya, but still kind of thing. You'd feel like that rather than just saying like, I hate Freya straight up kind of thing. I feel like that would be the case if we had some more context, at least in my opinion. But yeah, one more thing I have to give credit where it's due as well, like admittingly, is of course the fact that we see things like Kokono and stuff being worn out, because of course that's not something that is explained in the light novel. So I'll just talk about the light novel a little bit here, even though I'm acting as if I'm an anime only, but I have to explain Kokono a little bit more. Kokono only lasts for 15 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. And it can work up to 6 people because, of course, Haruhime has 6 tails when she uses it, so that's how it works. Kokono and Uchida no Kazuchi. But effectively, with this, it shows that it can run out basically over a period of time, and we see that 15 minutes have passed by. So a lot of people didn't realize that, and a lot of people were questioning that when I did my trailer reaction and saying like, well, it wasn't mentioned in the book. But to be fair, the book also doesn't mention a lot of other things as well when it comes to things passing out and things activating and stuff like that. I feel like Omori does kind of ignore those things, but it's to be assumed and presumed that it has run out, so that that can happen, because yeah, they wouldn't have just let it run out like this if it were the case, in that sense. But anyways, but yeah, let me know what you guys think on this front. Of course, let me know what you guys think about the general perspective of like the light novel stuff and everything. Would you guys like to have it more in the reviews, or would you guys like to keep it separate from the reviews in terms of course having it in the cut contents and stuff like that? So we talked about pacing and episode contents. We talked about animation, of course. I think those are the most important things, of course, when it comes to the general episode. Now I kind of want to talk about my expectations going into episode 15. So episode 15 being the final episode and the final showdown, as we saw at the end of the episode, right? Of course, between Otaral and the rest of the guys. It is going to be a big one. It is a bit concerning as to how much we still have technically left to War Games, because, obviously coming into this War Games season, I thought we'd have more than enough time. Admittingly, a lot of it has been cut away from having openings and endings, and also that one mini recap episode section we had in episode 11. I do feel like a lot of it was a lot of it kind of did not help the expectations I had from War Games so far. So going into the season, at least when it came to the War Games section, I've been saying we only needed 5 episodes. We ended up getting 6 episodes, and still we're not able to finish it. So I don't know if I'm wrong, or because I had thought that going into the War Game season or War Game section, I thought it would be 5 episodes, no openings, no endings outside of maybe an insert song or something along the way. And also what I was expecting was potentially no recaps or anything of that sort. So I guess if you discount that, like 5 episodes worth of, or 6 episodes, let's say we got 6 episodes, right? 6 episodes, no openings and endings, so that would be 2 minutes gone from each episode basically, or given to each episode. You would have had 12 minutes there and then of course the recap was about 5 minutes long. You got a 17-minute extension there in itself, which would have been, I think, more than fine. So maybe my 5 episodes wouldn't have been enough, but 6 episodes is clearly more than enough in my opinion. 17 minutes would have added so much context to everything and just given a lot more scene time to a lot of stuff as well. But anyways, going into episode 15, there's still a decent amount to cover. Of course, you still have the end fight, of course, that has to be covered, and not only that, but we also have the epilogue to cover as well. So we're gonna have to just wait and see as to what they're gonna do. Again, a part of me is really hoping that the final episode is about 45 minutes long, or basically an hour-long episode including ads. I'm really hoping it's the case, but do I expect that to happen? Probably not. So as a result, my expectations going into the final episode is I'm really hoping that they sacrifice episode 14's quality, if anything, to at least make episode 15 look extremely good, even if the pacing of the story might be a little bit off. I'm hoping that they will balance it out in that way, to be honest, because that's probably going to be the only way they can do it, because I am a little bit worried about the pacing side of things, but we're going to have to wait and see. It just shows how wrong I was when it came to War Games. I thought we only needed 5 episodes, but clearly, yeah, I was wrong, and we needed 6 or 7 episodes potentially. But yeah, again, we can't do anything about it. This is the amount we got, this is the amount we're getting. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. I know a lot of people are probably gonna be quite disappointed with the episode in the comments, which I understand. Absolutely, I agree. I understand with that state feeling and sentiment. I personally just don't feel that way, but I get if you guys feel that way. Nonetheless, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Of course, if you guys enjoyed it, remember to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, all that sort of good stuff, and I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, take it easy, everybody. Bye bye.